Okay.
Yes. Asked him to give you my phone number.
Right. And if you could just describe particulars that you've tried to give to other persons concerning your relationship with a man.
Yes, if I could just start from the beginning. My former... he is a German immigrant. He's now around 56, 57 years old. He's the father of my 2 kids. He has a string of criminal offences, especially violence. He was jailed in Toronto, Canada for violence. I believe he was thrown out of the German Navy because of a violent incident. I lived with him for a short time. I had my 2 kids in 1986 and 1987. I've since found out that he was in jail for nearly killing his first wife with the other 2 kids of the first marriage. He became violent towards me, so we separated, but I tried to remain on friendly terms for the sake of the kids. I allowed him regular access to the kids, overnight access and so on, and he used to spend nights at our place and we'd go on holiday together. There were occasions when he would come over to our house and drug my coffee, and I would sleep so soundly that I could hardly wake up in the morning, and at the time I didn't realise what had happened, but looking back now I realise that was when he took the kids. In early 1993, after I came back from a trip to America with my kids and my mother, my kids said to me their father had sexually assaulted them ever since they could remember. And I called the Bulla Child Protection branch in, and Detective Hannah was in charge of our case, and another detective called Maria. Charged with 4 counts of sexually assaulting my kids on Christmas Eve. Very soon my kids started talking about a lot of people and a lot of kids being involved in this, and it sounded like a pedophile ring, video cameras and pictures being taken. A couple of weeks after that, when the kids got more confident, they started speaking about seeing their father murder people. The method that they said he used was a frenzied stabbing attack as well as shooting them with a gun. He stabbed them over and over and over again.
Do you remember what period of the year that was?
Yes, that was between about 1990, when my son was 3, and early 1993.
Do you remember if they ever gave any particulars whereabouts?
Yeah, they talked about a lot of different venues. Mount Kira appears to have been one. The Hindu temple at Helensburgh was broken into, and this was confirmed by the temple staff when it was first built, and a murder took place there. They were taken to a forest a long way from home. They said there was sand under their feet and pine trees, and there were about 20 people present. They identified a woman with long blonde hair, a woman with long dark hair, and a man. They gave good particulars to me at the time.
What year did that relate to? This way.
The kids were unsure of when these things happened. Some of these things appear to have happened in 91, 92 and 90, perhaps yes, late 92 as well. That she was not investigating it, and she got pretty angry with me, and she said we're not interested in that. I pointed out that my kids were talking about murder, and she said that was a lot of rubbish. Around this time, when I started protesting that the thing wasn't being properly investigated, 2 policemen from Corrimal, I believe from Corrimal Police Station in uniform, came to my house around 7 in the morning when we were all still in our pyjamas. They hammered on the door. I believe one of them was Moustache, I don't know his name.
Was this was during when?
Early 93, just before I don't know what it was in relation to, but I opened the security door and they just came into my house. At that time I didn't have any experience with the police. I didn't know my rights. I thought they had a right to come in without a warrant. I didn't realise. When I phoned the solicitor later I knew my rights, but at that time I was just vulnerable. They both started shouting at me. They said, "Leave our investigation alone." They meant the investigation into the sexual assault. They said, "Just shut up about all of this, keep your mouth shut, you're going to stuff up the investigation, we'll get you for contempt of court, we'll arrest you, we'll fingerprint you," all sorts of threats. My kids were there and they were terrified. They ran upstairs screaming.
Did you complain about that particular incident?
Yes, at first I complained to the Ombudsman and I started to panic and I thought, I can't go through this, my nerves were shot to pieces, and I withdrew my complaint to the Ombudsman, but it should still be on record.
Did you find that in the body of that complaint you referred particularly to that incident? Just that incident?
Yes, only the incident. Well, yes, I also...
Is there any reference to your husband by those police other than those allegations?
No, no. After about 3 or 4 months I got my kids into counselling at Centre Care Wollongong. It's a Catholic counselling service in Corrimal Street. And she's a counsellor. My daughter was with a lady called Elizabeth. My son started talking about a cult that their father was in, apparently, with a whole lot of other people. This cult was apparently related to the pedophile ring and was involved in making snuff movies. And involved in a lot of killings. One day I received a phone call from the manager of Centre Care Wollongong just before I went to work, and she said, "Look, don't go to work today, we've got to see you, this is urgent." I went into Centre Care Wollongong and they sat me down there. The manager of Centre Care said to me, "You've got to go to detectives in Wollongong about these murders your kids are talking about, particularly kids talking about."
So this person actually has information about what your kids talked about?
Yes. She has everything on her record. A counsellor always keeps a written record of what children say, and she has that. And she's very concerned that she couldn't talk to anyone about it.
Did she describe to you dates about the incident?
No, my kids were very hazy on dates. Every time their father took them, he injected them with drugs. He gave them drugs by mouth. Hallucinogenic drugs apparently. Also something that made them sleepy, so they're very hazy on dates, they're very hazy on places. But they do mention a forest a long way from Wollongong. They fell asleep in the car when they were going there. So I said to the manager of Centre Care, "I've had terrible trouble with detectives into my house and yelling at me." I said, "What's the use of me going to Wollongong detectives?" And the manager said, "There has been a murder, at least one, perhaps a lot more." She said the Wollongong police are now investigating the murders of some people they found in Belanglo Forest. She said, "It does sound similar." She said, "You must go there. We'll ring them and tell them you're coming in." So I rang work and I said I wouldn't be in. I was in great shock. I had to have 3 weeks off work. I took my kids into Detective McGrath at Wollongong Police Station, where my kids were interviewed on video. Now, I wasn't allowed to be present, and I think that was illegal, but they wouldn't allow me to be present at the interview.
Did they tell you the reasons you weren't allowed to be present?
No, and at that time I wasn't aware of my rights to be with my kids during any police interview, so I just went along with it and sat outside the door.
That particular detective, was he attached to the investigating task force there?
Not at that point. Detective McGrath and a female detective at Wollongong Police Station just took the kids' statements. When the female detective came out, she was very white and she was shaking. She said to me they described 2 women, 2 men and a child being stabbed in a frenzied attack and shot. She said, "This could be the man Task Force Air is looking for." She said, "We're calling in Task Force Air." They brought us some lunch, and Detective Gay Creer came down from Task Force Air. my kids had described that one time their father picked up a hitchhiker and murdered her, I'm not sure where, but he took, after mutilating the body and making the kids help to put it into plastic bags, including cutting off the little finger of the left hand and mutilating the reproductive organs of this woman, their father put the body in the back of a Mazda station wagon that I owned and carried it into the bush and dumped it.
What colour was that Mazda?
Well, it's a bright blue Mazda station wagon, an early 70s model, I think.
Do you still have that vehicle today?
No, a few months before, he said to me, we've got to get rid of that station wagon. I said, why? I said, there's nothing wrong with it, we're getting it re-registered, aren't we? He said, no, I don't want it anymore, it's full of rust. I couldn't see any rust, I didn't know what he meant. He said, we'll sell it to the wreckers. And he forced me, because he was violent, I disagreed with him, he forced me to go to the wreckers with the rego papers and sell it for $50. But I knew it was worth a lot more than that, and I couldn't understand it at the time.
What other sort of vehicles did he own?
He didn't own any vehicles, but he had the use of two white Volvos, older type Volvos that belonged to me. And the children told me that he once either stole or borrowed the van from the Fairy Meadow car spa, which is a car wash. That van is a white van and it has spray painted blue bubbles all over it.
Do you know if what time, about what period that car was sold?
It was probably 1992, I'd say.
Right. Now, do you know if he had, he used to drink?
Yes, he was a very heavy drinker.
Smoke?
No, he didn't smoke, no.
Did he have a preference for any type of drink?
He generally drank wine when I saw him, but I thought he wasn't a smoker, but the kids told me over the next few months that he was into smoking marijuana, which I had no idea, and they described a bong. Well, they'd never seen a bong. They said he had this bottle with this water in it and this tube, and I knew that must be a bong, and I was pretty stunned because he never told me he smoked pot.
Now, has he ever had a passport?
Yes, he's a German citizen. He has a German passport.
Does he have an accent?
He has a German accent, but it's mixed with Canadian because he lived in Canada for quite a while.
Could you just provide some background detail concerning his work type of history?
Yes, lived in Bavaria in Germany as a boy. He was apprenticed as a mechanic at the age of 14. He completed his apprenticeship at around 17. He joined the German Navy, where he became an expert in radios and also a radio operator, and he also did the commando course there. He moved to Canada, Toronto, where he started a professional, amateur boxing at first. He went to America, where he was runner-up in the Golden Gloves light middleweight section. He's also playing soccer over there in a lot of different sports, ice hockey and stuff like that. He was convicted over there for fighting, I think, on the street and was jailed for some time.
Right. Now, has he got an accent?
Yeah, he's got a German accent mixed with Canadian.
Right.
This way, mate.
Is he a camping enthusiast?
Yes, he's very much into the outdoor stuff, yes.
And four-wheel drive?
Yes, he loves four-wheel drives, but he never had one. But the kids have seen him driving one, and I believe he probably stole it because he had a conviction for car stealing in '73.
And what about guns?
He was really a fanatic about guns. I bought a couple of Winchester rifles, and one of them I sold, but one of them I kept, and I sold Winchester. He was always oiling it and cleaning it for me. He went out shooting pigs with some friends out at Dubbo. Well, I think that was in the mid-80s. I didn't know that he went shooting on any other occasion. Winchester 22s. One of them had a 10-shot magazine. That's the one I kept. The other one I got rid of. He was always cleaning and oiling it for me. He said he was an expert on guns. He said he topped his class in shooting in the German Navy. He said he was always top of his class. He was a top shot. We also belonged to the archery club in Wollongong together, and he was a top shot there as well.
Did he have a pistol?
According to my kids, he did. I don't know where he hid it because I never saw it.
So, in this relationship you had, was it extremely violent, or?
He was very violent, yeah.
And so there were situations where local police were called?
Yes, a lot of situations, yes. He's well known to police in Wollongong because he nearly killed his first wife on a number of occasions as well.
Right. Okay.
Something's happened. One off the camera. That's where you're thinking from, yeah.
Wollongong Police Station, Gay Kriya came down to talk to me. He said, we're getting forensic police from Sydney and we're going to go over this station wagon of yours.
Do you remember when that was? Sorry?
Don't drop too much.
Right.
It was about mid-93, I'd say, about maybe July or perhaps August. So I took the forensic police, there were about 6 of them with these bags of equipment, testing equipment, down to the wrecking yard. They showed their badges to the owner of the wrecking yard and they said they wanted to search this car. First of all, they tested the back of the station wagon where the kids had said the body of the murdered woman had been. And I was standing there watching and they were photographing all the different parts of the car. And they got something out of their bag and they tested stains in the back of the station wagon. And they said to me, this is human blood. And I was very shocked. I said, but he used to go fishing a lot. I said, he'd throw the fish in the back there. Don't you think this could be fish blood? They said, no, with this testing equipment we've got, we know this is human blood. They then proceeded to rip out every panel from the car and put it in paper bags and label it. And they said they're sending it up to Sydney for scientific testing. Gay Kriya asked me, would I mind if he came around to my house? At this stage I knew nothing about search warrants, but I did want to help. So I said, no, that's fine, you can come and look around. So they came to my house, which I'd only recently bought, but all my stuff was there. And they said, have you got a gun licence? I said, no, but I do have a gun. I said, I guess I should give you that because I need to share it. So I gave them my Winchester, which was loaded at the time. And Gay Kriya said to me, a Winchester like this one is one of the guns we're looking for. I said, I thought you were looking for a Ruger. He said, yes, we're looking for a Ruger and we're looking for a Winchester like this one as well. So he said, this could be the one that we're looking for.
And did he describe to you if they were looking for any ammunition or anything like that?
I didn't give him my box of ammunition. In fact, I've still got it today. I didn't want to give him that. I just felt I wanted to keep it, so I just let him have the ammunition that was in the magazine. They took away the gun. I never saw it again. I never heard any more about it. I never heard any more about the testing. They were going to do further testing on the panelling of the car, but I never heard any more about that. Now, at that time, Gay Kriya said to me, the main suspect in the backpacker murders. He was quite positive that he was involved. The kids had given excellent evidence of the method of killing, which hadn't been released to the public at that stage. Details which hadn't been released, they knew.
What were some of those details? I'll be finished, on that of the tape. So I'll do. So next, what then? Where were we? Details concerning.
Yes, after a few months I became aware of the fact that I was entitled to a copy of my kid's interview with Detective McGrath at Wollongong Police Station under the law. So I then applied in writing for a copy of that taped interview. Detective McGrath rang me up and said to me, we don't keep stuff like that, we haven't got it anymore, we've taped over it long ago. I was really shocked at that because this was murder we're talking about and they've got rid of the tape. Now later on my son talked about murders. He talked about a girl of around 9 years old that was hung from the rafters of a barn type building. Also murders of young people in their early 20s apparently. Now later on my son talked about a lot more murders. He talked about a girl of around 9 years old that was hung from the rafters of a barn type building. Also murders of young people in their early 20s apparently. I kept ringing Detective McGrath at Wollongong Police Station saying, you know, come to Centre Care, I want to talk to you about these murders. But Detective McGrath was very evasive. He'd made case. She would still have all the information of the murders my son and my daughter described. Police station saying, you know, come to Centre Care, I want to talk to you about these murders. But Detective McGrath was very evasive. He'd make an appointment with this and she had to be taken off our case. She would still have all the information of the murders my son.
Okay. Now, concerning that information, did you see this gradually did you see behaviour in your son that suggested and confirmed your opinion of what had happened?
Yes, I was quite sure my children were telling the truth, and so were their counsellors, and the counsellors were taking this seriously. I never heard from the Backpacker Task Force again. I contacted, yes, after they took the gun away. I never heard from them again. I couldn't understand it. I believed they were going to arrest me. And I was very shocked when I heard that Ivan Milat was arrested and jailed on the same day, jailed for sexual assault of my kids in 1994.
Was there anything that you noticed in your relationship that suggested that he was into rituals or anything of that nature?
No, he was very secretive, but my children mentioned that he was into rituals and the occult, hallucinogenic drugs, smoking pot. He would dress up as a woman. On one occasion when he killed a young woman, he dressed up as a woman and took my kids in the blue station wagon to pick her up, and she was hitchhiking, and he enticed her into the car. She thought he was a woman, and I believe he did dress up as a woman on a number of occasions, and he forced my son to walk down the main street of Wollongong with him dressed like that.
So what was happening here, the kids would be in the car with him and
yes.
he'd be dressed up as a woman?
Yes, and he would pick up hitchhikers and he would murder them.
Right. Now, and this information surfaced at a later period?
Yes, it took quite a few months for the full story to come out as my kids got confidence that they were going to be believed and they were going to be safe and that their father couldn't kill them. They began to come out with more and more stuff. And also my daughter drew pictures of jewellery that were worn by some of the women that were murdered and pictures of backpacks that they had. And one of these backpacks was very colourful and had the word abracadabra written on it. Also, I just want to mention that fairly early in '93, the father of my kids went to Bulli Catholic School, St Joseph's, tried to kidnap my children there. He said to them, your mother's in hospital, you have to come with me. My kids ran away and there was no teacher on the playground. Later that day, he seemed to know that my kids had an appointment at Centre Care in Corrimal Street, Wollongong. He went to Centre Care at 10 to 3, and this is on police records, and he was carrying a long pink bag which appeared to have something heavy in it. He went into Centre Care and started talking to the staff in an aggressive way, saying, which one of you is making my children tell these lies about me? I want to know who did this, who made up these lies about me. Centre Care staff phoned the police. In the meantime, my mother arrived at Centre Care with my two kids in the car. He came out on the veranda carrying the bag, and the kids said to my mother, there he is, and that's the bag where he keeps the gun. My mother quickly drove away from Centre Care and went to a phone box down near North Wollongong Beach where she phoned Centre Care and said, what on earth is going on? They said, he's left now, but we've called the police. By the time the police came, he was gone. Now his bail conditions were that he not approach the children, so the next day he spent that night in jail and came before a magistrate the next day, charged with breaking his bail conditions. The magistrate let him go again.
Right. Now, you were actually making complaints about your husband, and at the time you were separated?
Yes,
So
yes.
there's an actual history in court records and police records about them complaints, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Now, what is the position today?
Position today is that he was jailed for 6 years on the 24th of May 1994 in Wollongong Court for sexual assault of my kids. He wrote to me from jail. I think he was in June at the time. He said that he'd arranged to get out. He said he was getting out in December. I couldn't believe it. I knew he was appealing, but he knew for sure he was getting out.
What happened as a result of that evidence taken?
My daughter talked about the backpacker murders. As they were now at that time known as. She talked about being taken to Belanglo Forest, although she didn't say Belanglo, she talked about a forest up on the Southern Highlands, where she saw her father murder a large number of people, both young women and young men. This evidence should be on record as part of her statement at Wollongong Court. She described the murders in detail, the stabbing and the shooting. She described there were around 20 people present. They took videos, they took pictures of this. They sexually assaulted a large number of children at the same place at the same time. My daughter talked about her father dressing up in women's clothing, putting on a wig, dressing up as a satanic priest, using a weapon like a sword as well, a long a dagger type thing. She described an altar in the forest. Now, I forgot to mention this earlier, but one of the constables from Corrimal or Bulli police station told me that a stone altar had been found in Belanglo Forest. The police were so alarmed and didn't want this evidence to get out, they dismantled it, they got rid of it before the press got hold of it, and they made it disappear. I think this ties in with the circles of stones found near each body, which is an occult kind of thing, and the fact that the bodies were buried east-west, which is also tying in with occult practices.
Now, and during your relationship with him, you never seen any signs of him practicing or being interested in those types?
No, he was never interested in that sort of thing, but he was very anti-Christian, and when I was going to church he'd always say Jesus was just a filthy Jew, and he would insult me whenever I was on my way to church.
So he was anti-Semitic?
He was very anti-Semitic, and hated blacks. Right. He hated women.
So he was racist?
He was very, very racist. He hated Asians, he hated blacks.
What did he think of British people?
He hated the English. He had a particular hatred of Poms. He called them bloody Poms. They should all go back to their own country.
Yeah.
Yes. He was very bigoted in a lot of ways. Jews particularly were a group of people that he particularly hated, and he said that had he been present at the Holocaust, he would have happily killed them.
Okay. Yeah, and you don't really remember any of his circle of friends, do you?
The only friend that he mentioned was someone whose name he would never give me. He would say sometimes on a Saturday afternoon, I'm going to see the Bavarian bloke down South Wollongong. And I often said, well, who is this Bavarian bloke? And he said, oh, you don't have to know that. Also, Frank Arkell appeared to know him and came to watch him at his bicycle racing.
So your husband at the time raced bicycles?
Yes, yes. He was very, very fit. He was also into wrestling as a youngster. He was extremely strong. He was trained in martial arts, self-defence and so on through the German Navy.
Now, I understand you've been harassed.
Yes, when I started to speak up about the backpacker murders and the fact that he was a suspect and hadn't been properly looked into, I started to get telephone calls. My mother had a voodoo doll left on her doorstep, which was a black doll with a pin in its head. I didn't pay any attention to it. I did try to give it to Bulli Police and Corrimal Police and Wollongong Police. They all said get lost with it. They didn't want to know about it. But I consider that a sort of a death threat in a roundabout way. I get phone calls where they say, you're finished, you're gone, we'll get you for this, mainly male voices. Phone calls where nobody would speak. people would follow me in their cars. So I got out of Wollongong and I went to live in the bush. I went into hiding.
Now, was he a dishevelled? Was he an organised person?
He was extremely organised. He was a fanatic at having things just right. Having things, you know, the gun had to be beautifully oiled, the kitchen had to be perfectly tidy, everything in its place in the cupboards. He was a fanatic on everything being neat, tidy. He was always polishing and cleaning my car.